Hello and welcome back to the Black Death. Today I want to continue the series of my guides. Today I'll be talking about advanced building, and by advanced building I mostly mean the building of walls to surround and protect your base. For instance, the house that you've built, or to protect any of the NPC traders that you have built. In my opinion, currently building walls isn't very well implemented into this game. There are just too many ways to get over walls, around walls, or it is too easy to break them down. And especially for the amount of effort that it takes to build them or to get to the point where you can build them is too high as opposed to the effort it takes to destroy them or to just get around them. So a good rule of thumb is really you don't want to be doing too much with walls until later on when you've got the better walls at your disposal. The first type of wall that you'll be able to craft, and you can craft that directly in the beginning without even having to level any building, is the Wattle Wall, which you can see right here. It can be crafted from sticks, as you can see here, and then of course the Wattle Gatehouse along with that for also some sticks, and then last you'll be able to craft a primitive door for some sticks and also some thread. As you can see, 5 sticks and a thread. Now, although you can make those and they are pretty cheap to make if you find some sticks on the way, or you can also go to a primitive crafter if you have one or you found one, and you can often find them in their stores. Now, the problem with wattle walls is they're not exactly very high. And so, for instance, if someone were to build a small structure just outside here, for instance, a workbench or a trader of any sort, then they can just jump over here and they have just crossed the wattle wall without much of an effort. Additionally, wattle walls are, of course, quite flimsy and easy to destroy, and as soon as you've got an iron maul, you can really quite destroy them quite easily. Even I can right now, and I've only got a sword, and I'm destroying the wall at about the same rate. A little bit less than the iron sword. Which means if I have a few iron swords with me, I can just break this wall and get in. So that's no real good. The second type of wall that you'll be able to build is the Palisade wall. And the Palisade wall is, as you can see, quite a bit higher, and it is also quite a bit, it has quite a bit more XP. It will require of you wood and usually string. As you can see here, the door that is matched with this is the wooden door, the wooden house door to be exact. You'll need wood planks for that, which you can craft at a crafting bench, and some rope, for which you'll need some artistry. Being taller is, of course, already better, since you can't just use a workbench to get over. However, there are other methods to get over even this kind of a wall. For instance, basic traders can sometimes be used if you know how to do it. Then you can use towers to get over, and then there are also quite a few other things you can do. Additionally, even though they are harder to destroy, if you have 2 iron mauls, for which you also only need about level 6 in smithing, you only need about 2 of those to get through a wall, and then you're in as well with brute force. The third type of wall there is the stone wall. And at this point, it actually starts getting a little bit harder to get this stuff because you'll need stone ore and mortar, for which you'll need clay, and clay is really the end game resource which you'll be grinding for. However, I barely ever see stone walls being used because, well, they use up quite a few resources and they are about as low as the wattle walls. So similar tricks as with the wattle walls and even the palisade walls can be used to get over them. So usually the amount of effort it takes versus the trade-off it's really not good for. However, it will be a lot more durable than other types of wall, and so it will take at least 3 to 4 iron molds to get through it. Additionally, I've also seen people, if you have two people, that they just jump on each other's backs or heads and then get into the wall like that, so they don't even need a crafter or to place anything down. So really, those are pretty shit. The fourth type of wall, and in my opinion, first decent kind of wall, is the castle wall. Now, as you can see, at this point, building becomes really expensive, and so usually if you're alone or you don't invest a lot of time into this game, you really can't use these too much, or at least you'll only be able to make a very small perimeter with them, as you need stone bricks, for which you'll need stone ore and clay and water, you'll need wood planks, you'll need mortar, which I've discussed before, and you'll need iron nails. However, these are quite tall, you can't jump over them, you can't jump over them with a wooden tower either. If you are able to build a similar structure like a castle wall in front of a castle wall, or a stone tower in front of a castle wall, you will also be able to use that to jump over. So you can still jump over with some sort of building. You can also still break down castle walls with molds, but really people have to be very dedicated in order to do that because it takes quite long. And since an iron mold takes about 3,000 gold to repair, it really gets quite expensive. However, if you are building castle walls, it is usually, at this point, your opponent will be able to build siege weaponry such as a mangonel. And as soon as they have the mangonel, it takes about, I think, 20 shots, somewhere around there, 20 mangonel shots to get into a castle wall, and those are really quite easy to craft with a bit of stone ore and some ropes, so you'll be inside those very quickly. The last type of wall, and you'll need level 18 to 19 in building to get this, is the kingdom wall. And you can now need forge bricks for that, which takes iron, clay, and water. You'll need even more wood planks than before, even more iron nails, mortar, and clay tiles, which also need clay and water. And so you can see how important clay really becomes in the late game. Now, kingdom walls are the walls that you can see built around here. They offer even more protection against mangonel shots and also iron molds. However, also these can be breached, and what is more important, however, is that these are closed, so you can't just jump out of them or over them, and it also gives you a little bit of a defense since you have something to hide behind. But the most important thing, as I said, is that it is roofed, and so you can't really jump over it by building another kingdom wall right beside it. As far as I know, there at least used to be, and probably still is, one way, for instance, to build a keep or a barracks near it to jump over it, but I mean that is quite a big space you need to build, and also takes quite a bit of time to gather those resources as well. now that we've discussed the different types of walls there are, and how really ineffective even the best of walls are, and I mean, to build these walls, it took about 4 people a week of, well, about 8 hours a day to get those up, and still they don't really give you much protection. So what can you do to make sure that people still don't get in, for instance with a mangonel or by jumping over it? Well, the most important thing here is, of course, land claims. And land claims are really the only reason they're that important is that they allow you to claim an area on which other people cannot build. And that means if you put, for instance, a normal land claim or just inside of the wall, so before you build the walls, you place the land claim down where you want to build the walls, that means that there'll be a significant distance away from the wall where people can't build. And if people can't build at that significant distance away from the wall, they'll no longer be able to jump over it. This also applies to wattle walls and stone walls, however you still need to be careful because people sometimes can just piggyback off one another to get over. But for instance for the Palisade wall this is quite important since you can, or at least I haven't seen it, that people piggyback off another over these. And especially not over castle or kingdom walls. After you've secured your walls to the outside in form of jumping, there is a second thing you can do to secure them against mangonels, for instance, or against iron molds. And there is no real way to definitely make sure that people won't get through your wall. You can only make it as hard for them as possible, and so they might at some point decide that it isn't worth getting inside, or they might think that you only have one wall up and then only bring that many mangonel shots, kill that one wall or break that one wall, and then they'll see there's another wall and they'll just say, alright, we don't have anything left, and then they might leave. They might come back with more, of course, but you might have time to react by then and build up that wall again. Of course, these defenses can come in various forms, so for instance you can start with a kingdom wall and then protect the most important stuff by a palisade wall, or you could have multiple castle walls or kingdom walls behind one another. You can also combine the different types of walls together and even create a maze. You can create distractions. For instance, you can have you can build multiple keeps and then put all your valuable stuff in only one of the keeps, but they won't know in which keep it is because they all look like they might have something in, and so they use up their resources to get in one or two of the others, find nothing, and then have used all of their stuff and your stuff is safe. So decoy buildings can be quite useful as well. I'll put in some footage of a different base we've also raided, where you can see how people have actually used multiple walls behind one another to sort of detract us from going any further. Last, if you have any valuable things, in my opinion, there is just one building which is, or the safest building in my opinion, to put your things into is the town hall, since it is the building with the most HP that has no top entrance, for instance like the barrack, so you can't just jump inside of it or jump up and inside of it, and there's usually always a way somebody finds to jump on top of it and into it. For instance, here somebody has used a wooden tower to get on top of the roof, to get on top of the bell tower, and then to get on top of the barracks. So really anything important, I would say either store inside of here or make sure that you've got some land claims down surrounding the area, for instance, surrounding a keep, that are themselves protected so that nobody can build near them. Another problem with building in this game, at least after you've gone past wattle walls and stone walls and palisade walls, is that they no longer rotate in small increments. They'll only rotate by 90 degrees, and so it will become a little bit harder to build with them. But more important is that the different types of wall elements, for instance the gatehouse, a normal wall, or a corner, they all have different sizes, and they are not multiples of one another. So for instance, the gatehouse is not double as big as the normal wall, and usually the corners aren't as big as the normal wall elements either. And so what is really important when building is that you build symmetrically, so that if you build a gatehouse on one side of the wall, you build a gatehouse on the other side of the wall. It doesn't have to be necessarily directly opposite of it, but somewhere along that piece of wall. Also important is that some of the pieces may snap together differently. So sometimes they might snap in and overlap a little bit, sometimes there might be a small gap, and so you really have to be quite careful and fiddle around with it to make sure that they're always correctly aligned, or at least to your best ability. And in the end, it all comes down really to praying that it works, because somewhere something usually always happens, and quite often in the end you find that there's just a gap which won't quite close properly, and then you have the problem. But if you do try, it can happen, can oftentimes happen that you do sort of make it, and if not, at least there'll just be a small gap through which at least people can come through. That's all I have on this subject. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. If you have any questions, do post them in the comments. I'll try to answer them either in the comments or as soon as I make a new video. It will also help me with finding new ideas for the game, and also tell me what people struggle with the most.